Welcome to another GRU interview designed to inspire and educate by sharing short profiles of Canadian real estate investors. My name is Ryan Kirk with GRU, Gemaki Real Estate Wealth, where we help busy people grow their wealth and freedom through investment real estate. In this episode, our guest is Mags Kennedy, known as the Rental Property Mom on Instagram. She shares loads of valuable content on her journey as an investor in Ontario. Here's Mags. Okay, well, Mags, thank you so much for being here with us. Can you just introduce yourself and tell us how you got involved in real estate?
Sure. So Max Kennedy, I live in Ontario, Canada, and I think in terms of how I got into real estate, for many of us, something always propels us towards real estate. And for me, I always had the desire at a very young age to own my own house. And so my goal in school was to buy a house once I was able to save enough money. And, I was brought up in a house where the traditional, you go to school, you get married, and you buy a home. And for me, I didn't really follow that sequence. What I wanted to do is really buy it on my own because I felt like owning a home meant like I was truly an adult and I had responsibilities. And that's how I sort of measured my success at the time. And so shortly after I finished school, I was able to save about 20% down towards my first house, which I bought, which was a 3-bedroom home. And shortly after that, I realized I was just sort of living check to check. And I became very aware of my finances. I wasn't able to really enjoy, um, you know, things like going out with my friends or anything like that. And I was in a job also that I really didn't enjoy at the time. And I remember getting the end of year summary, with your company, group RRSP or retirement savings, and it basically said like, if you save this amount of money, until this date, this is the date, this is the year that you can retire. And I remember that, in your 20s, don't really think about retirement. But I thought just of my situation at the time where I was living paycheck to paycheck. I knew that if I had lost my job, I wouldn't be able to keep my house. And it was very difficult at the time being, in your early 20s. I thought like there has to be another way to accelerate this. There has to be another way to build wealth outside of my 9 to 5. And so that's when I really started like my mind started shifting to, what they call now like the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early is sort of what I had in mind at that point. And so coincidentally at that time, a realtor came by and he came to my house and he's like, hey, like, do you want to sell your house? They're just, I guess, cold knocking on doors. I said, okay, like, what's my house worth right now? And, he did sort of an assessment and he told me what it was worth. I'm like, done, let's do it. And so I ended up selling my house and I was sort of just blown away by the amount of appreciation that I was able to acquire in a short period of time. And therefore, like 10x my income, if you will. And so at that time, I ended up looking around. I ended up buying a place in Oakville, Ontario, and it was a 3-bedroom house. And I knew that there was some plans to build a hospital right across from it, a new hospital. And I thought, this might be a really good investment in terms of appreciation and the need and in a couple of years. So moved into that house and then realized really early that, again, living check to check, I'm like, okay, this isn't working, right? I'm just, again, doing the same thing. And so shortly after that, what I did is I decided to sell that place and again, perform really well. And I ended up buying 2 properties. And when I bought the 2 properties, I ended up living in one and then renting out the other. And so that's how I sort of started in real estate was, just that desire to see, one day if I could have the choice to sort of escape my 9 to 5 and accumulate and build wealth in other ways. And so I realized I had something going on here, right? Like I had a house that was appreciating. I had people renting it out. I had some cash flow at that time when you could buy a single family home where you could actually cash flow off it.
Yeah.
And it was great. And so, at that point, I continue on that journey. Again, I sold a house that I was living in, end up buying 2 more rentals. And so I was living in the one, renting out 2 by that time. And then met my husband. He had 2 rentals of his own and sort of joined forces at that time and started building our portfolio from there.
So when you bought that first property that you weren't planning to move into, it was purely an investment property. Did you know anyone who was doing that? Did you have any examples or anyone to guide you, or were you just figuring it out as you went?
Honestly, yeah, I was just figuring it out as I went. And I think it was really the first property that I sold where I was like, this is amazing, right? Like it felt so easy to do. And so I thought, like, if I was able to have enough money just for a down payment, then really you're getting the appreciation from, the actual value of the house itself. And so just from that simple idea, I just thought like, this is great. And so I just sort of continued along that path.
Okay, and in your real estate career, have there been any like real strong sources of education for you? Have you been part of any networks or had a mentor or read any great books or listened to podcasts? What have been kind of some of your education sources?
Yeah, in the beginning, honestly, I didn't have anybody, and then it wasn't until later on I read Real Estate Investing in Canada by Don Campbell,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought to myself, like, okay, here is where I actually looked at my rentals as a business. Here is where I thought I need systems and processes in place, and I need to understand how to analyze deals because I had the foundation there, right? I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't have a direction in terms of how do I streamline this, flush this out so I can acquire more properties quicker. And so that really was a game changer for me, is reading that. And then when I read that, I read shortly after that, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which of course, I think I already had that mentality, but it then solidified that I'm on the right track again because I didn't know anybody who had sort of similar ideas as me. So oftentimes when you're in it alone, you just sort of feel a bit isolated to think like, is it just me? Or, does anybody else have the same goals? You read something like that and you think, okay, I'm not the only one thinking that way.
I see. Yeah, that's cool. So is there a specific investment strategy or specialty that you've landed on? You mentioned single family homes initially. Is that
Yeah.
still what you're doing?
Yeah, so initially it was single family homes. Again, I think back in the early 2000s, it was easier to acquire and again, be able to cash flow on those. So continued on the single family homes. We also started investing in multifamily. We had done a BRRRR as well in one of the properties that we've done. Just recently, we have a property under contract, which is a triplex that we plan to BRRRR as well. So I think what we've done is we've taken sort of the idea of the buy and hold and expanded to say, okay, how can we accelerate this more with our current experience and try different things?
And are you and your husband doing them all with sole ownership, or
And are you and your husband
with
doing
any
them all
partners?
with sole ownership?
Yes, all on our own, all on our own. We're very aware that at some point we're probably going to expand and get some partnerships there. But yeah, it has been all on our own.
Okay, that's cool. What's the best deal you've ever done?
That's a great question. And it's so funny because that is sort of a subjective because when I look back at all the properties that I bought at the time, I always thought I paid too much. I always thought, like this is way over my head. What am I doing? I close a deal, I'd walk away and I'm like, what did I just do?
Mhm.
Until 3, 5, 10 years pass and you're like, why didn't I buy more? And so it's sort of, you think about it now, and I can give you an example. I had one house that I moved into, 2-bedroom home, tiny little place, and I bought it and I thought like, how am I even gonna resell this? Nobody wants a 2-bedroom home. And, after 8 years, that's my highest performing home out of all of them. So again, at the time, I thought I overpaid for something. But now in hindsight, it's my best performer. And, holistically, if I look at everything, they're all performing relatively well. So I can't say, what was my best, because at the time I didn't think that would be my best. You realize it over the course of, slowly building that
Yeah,
wealth.
yeah, that's so true. And has there been any significant mistake that you've made, and
how did you recover from that?
Yeah, there's so many. There's so many decisions I made, and I think about it now, and I think, wow, I'd just never do that again. And just to name a few, I had a lovely couple that lived in one of my rentals for about 6 years. They were a retired couple. They kept my place immaculate, and I never increased the rent once. You know, they come over, they bring me food, they'd send me Christmas cards. So it became a bit, emotional. And I thought, if I increase the rent, would they leave? Not really understanding my rights as a landlord. So that's an example. Or, not doing my due diligence in the beginning when selecting tenants. That was a big thing, and selecting the wrong tenants. But I would have to say, if I were to look back, for me, it would be not having the right team in place. And I say that because, again, you don't know what you don't know. And I remember going to the bank and wanting to buy more properties, and the bank would say, like, sorry, you already got 2 properties, you can't afford more. And I'd leave and I'd be like, well, I guess that's it. I'm tapped out and I can't. And, without knowing that there's so many other options out there, there's private lenders, there's joint ventures, and there's mortgage agents that you can speak with that can give you options. And at that time, I just didn't know that. And so I believe, had I taken the initiative to not let that stop me and continue to look at other avenues, I probably would have accelerated faster. So I always say, like, that was probably my biggest regret, is not taking the initiative, letting that stop me without taking the initiative to find out if there are other ways myself.
Okay, so like having a solid mortgage broker or some, finance advice.
Absolutely, for sure. Mortgage broker, 100%, because I have one right now who is able to tell me, okay, here's your limit, here's how much you can get, here's what you need to do to get your next one. And that's absolutely what I would have needed when I had no knowledge at all in terms of how can I build, how can I scale. So really trying to find people who are aligned with your goals and are investor focused and can be able to provide you that advice.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so speaking of advice, what advice would you offer, Mags, to aspiring real estate investors, those who are exploring and are interested and haven't yet made the leap?
Yeah, I think that it goes back to, what is your reason? What is your purpose? I strongly believe that when you start exploring real estate, you're going to come across difficult times. When you're about to put that large down payment, you're going to think twice, right? You can't help but to think that. And I think it has to go back to what's driving you to do this. And I also think that I think you really have to stick to your plan. There's so many strategies. There's so much information now of, how to invest, where to invest, flips, JVs, and all these other things. And I think it's, know what your goal is and do what's right for you. If you want to make quick cash, maybe a flip is great. If you want slow and steady growth, which is, what I like, perhaps it could be something like a buy and hold or a BRRRR. So I think it's really identify what your goal is and stay true to that and stick to it. Like, there's that shiny object syndrome that I admit I fall into sometimes. And I think it's, don't deviate from the plan and stay consistent and true to your plan.
Yeah, that's really good. What about those who are more seasoned real estate investors? Any advice specifically for people? Maybe they've plateaued, or maybe they feel like they've hit a wall. Any advice for those people?
Yeah, I always, for myself now in my life, it's all about time. I want more time with my family. I want more time to do the things I want to do. And so that means I need to let go of other things, not be so hands-on. Like, I don't have to run to, we manage all our properties, so I don't want to run to a property and have to fix something. So I think it's about having the right processes and people in place to help you, how to outsource things and how to make better use of your time instead of getting in the weeds. Because maybe if your focus is, like for me, is to continue to grow our portfolio, I don't have time to deal with, an issue somewhere, So again, outsourcing that piece out.
Okay, that's great. So what's next for you? Like, what's the future of your real estate journey?
Yeah. So of course, I think once you're in it, you want to continue to build it. And so one piece of it is looking at partners as we continue to grow our portfolio. So I do have a coach and a mentor now that's helping me through that because I think it's important to continue learning and to continue other avenues. So that will probably be the next step moving forward. But ultimately for us, it's how do we get a nice sort of, you know, a nice sort of, I want to say nest, if you will, that we can, pass down to our daughter, or that we can hopefully retire from, or even just have a choice. Doesn't even necessarily mean retire, but just have a choice to say, maybe I want to scale it back a bit from a 9 to 5. I mean, that's a great option to have, I think, nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if somebody was interested in partnering with you or just learning more from you and from your journey, how can they find you, get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at the Rental Property Mom. I started that because I was sort of taught when I was growing up to never talk about finances, never talk about money. You keep that in a vault and you lock it up and you don't ever talk about it. And I think that in my journey of trying to find is there more than a 9 to 5? Is it possible? And I feel like real estate has really helped me reach my goals, really helped our family, that it's so important for people just to understand that, at least consider it, look into it, because it could really help your goals, your situation. And I just want to provide that information to others. And again, if anybody has questions, they can certainly reach out to me with any questions or inquiries that they may have.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll put that in the link, and we'll put a link to your Instagram in the video description. And I've really enjoyed following you, been learning a lot, really enjoyed your content. You offer a ton of value to all your followers, so that's been great.
Thank you, Ryan. Likewise as well.
Thank you so much for doing this interview. It's been a pleasure getting to know more of your story.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mags.
So good to hear more of Mag's investing journey. I love how she's been continuously learning and growing, expanding her portfolio over time. And I love how she's open about the mistakes she's made and how she developed through them. One thing that's clear with Mag's is that she really knows what she wants. She's laser focused on her priorities. If you follow her on Instagram, then you can see how committed she is to her family. She's always spending time with her husband and daughter, investing in those relationships. And she's committed to her health, running, yoga. She's really into fitness. And she's consistent with growing her real estate business. She's focused. Mags knows what she wants, and she puts first things first in her life. Now, is that true of you? Have you gotten really clear on your priorities? Do you know your why? Do you have a compelling purpose? It's something to think about. Thanks to Mags for joining us this episode. Very inspiring woman. Definitely follow her on Instagram at The Rental Property Mom. She shares tons of tips and advice and funny reels, and message her for more info on how you can partner together. Okay, Canada, thanks for watching and happy investing.